Good morning. Today is the 26th of September 2022. We've had about a dozen anecdotes now. It seems appropriate to stop and have a review. In philosophy, we took the God and country side of things. We held Christ as a formal argument of decency, and then we acted as logically and as reasonably as we could. We took the other intellectual position. Because of that, we adopted the classic battle of good and evil, where the priest is a good guy and the pimp is a bad guy. The pimp knows how to hustle, con, manipulate, and intimidate people. He has no love or guilt in him, and he's the very definition of what is called the bad guy. On the other side is a priest, and because the priest exists, the American Yank exists. He tries as best he can to be normal and well-adjusted, even though that's not a natural thing at all. He becomes a good man or a good woman, race relegated to an endearing quality of your parents, that sort of thing. Next, he becomes a good husband and a good wife, a good father or a good mother, and next a good citizen. And he's the very definition of what we call the good guys. In psychology, the short manual definition of mental illness is the normal taken into the abnormal. From a cold to the flu to pneumonia. We went backwards from pneumonia back to the flu, back to the cold, back to being normal, and realized that normal is normal but not good enough. We had the example of the young man who has very powerful thoughts flying through his head concerning the young maiden, but doesn't realize that doesn't associate those thoughts with actually getting the gal pregnant, or original sin. So we took that sack that's naturally inside out and we put it right side in. We used words in our head to do that, and we simply chose to do that, or logic and will. The gal who changes the dirty diapers gets the romance, the priest who takes a vow of poverty maximizes profits, and that computer cloud in the sky, that terribly important imposed emotional attitude. And we had as an example the American Army Green Berets who would defend the poor and the oppressed for no good reason. The gal who would actually ask the 10-year-old what he wants for his birthday. And the Catholic nun who very obviously holds that argument. She's the mother of society. In economics, we had as an example that young couple with a newborn baby in a detached 1950s house, and we called that the very basic economic unit. We went out to the side and we started with farming and mining, then above that manufacturing, then above that wholesale, retail, and repair, and then retirement, education, and recreation. We put parentheses around that and put a little T for time, and we Darwinized to heaven to get everybody out of poverty and into plenty. We recognize some rules with that. Some of them are the people who do the producing do the consuming, and that the doctors and lawyers form a sort of lattice or framework, and that the priest provides the necessary that causes it all. And that there are fundamental jobs such as being a parent, and going out a bit, jobs such as a plumber, and that a plumber is a job and a professional athlete is not. And then we went back to that young couple, and we realized that all the farming and mining, all the manufacturing, all the stores and advertising are all geared to give that young couple whatever they ask for. And we called that home economics. In the judicial, the word judicial means to establish facts that are true as true, and we realized that logically we just can't justify a judicial court. And the example of that is communism, the prima donna intellectuals government, which doesn't have a judicial court. So we went back and realized that one of the attributes of Christ himself is that he's truth itself. And we fantasized about going to the Supreme Court, and instead of the court saying you can have no religion in government, we insisted they have only the Apostles' Creed. Why? Because we said so. That's why. And once we did that, then a judicial court appears, and with that, natural law and a normal supply and demand curve, and being normal and well-adjusted. then we realize that the word natural law is one of the most misnamed things around. The political. In the political, we fantasize about two guys walking down the steps from the Supreme Court, the grand deduction, and in the United States, one would be called a Republican and one a Democrat. And they go out into society, and that society is made up of the summation of family units. And then perhaps single guys over there and single gals over here. And then there's a summation of farms and mines and the summation of manufacturing plants and stores and that sort of thing. And they arrange the parameters of competition all the way to getting into heaven after they die. And that's how we got a large middle class. That ideal society that everybody talks about and everybody dreams about. Well, that's our summary. Let's start to end this anecdote. Perhaps there's a lawyer out there who can talk to us about the difference between natural law and what we have today. And a psychiatrist who can talk about the idea of purposefully getting into character, being normal and well-adjusted, versus the diagnostic and statistical manual, or what we have today. And perhaps there's an economist that can talk about the idea of home economics versus not home economics. And before we go, if we can talk you into it, if you're that gal listening to us, to take the position of a 1950s housewife, and you get into character, and you have one husband and 4 children. We have to get started here, and so what kind of a budget do you need to get everybody out of want and into plenty? And if you're the young man, take the position of the husband and ask yourself, how many hours do I have to work in order to come up with that budget? There we go. We feel kind of like we can get started now. Well, that's it for this anecdote. We shall see you on the next anecdotes. Thank you.